Center for Action and Contemplation presents a homily by Father Richard Rohr.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel is written to us by Matthew. The 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had ordered them. When they saw him, they worshipped, but some still doubted. And when Jesus approached, he said to them, "All power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always until the end of the world." This is good news from the Lord. So if we just look at the picture of this feast, it feels like rocket ship Jesus heading upward. But of course, that can't really be the message, because God is not up there. Remember when the Russians went up into Sputnik and they went out into space and they said, well, see, God isn't here. So we can't think of God as up there or out there. But in terms of heaven, if Jesus is going to return to his Father, that's the only way to picture it, because heaven, the heavens, for all of us symbolize infinity, eternity. But let's try to get to the deeper meaning. In John's Gospel, he says, "Unless I go, the Spirit cannot come." There's a complete connection between absence and presence. And you all know this already. Only when you really miss somebody, when you long for them, when you need them, when you think about them because they're not there, only then does that carve out a space inside of you. And you realize how much you love them. Presence and absence are correlated terms. You have to have absence or you don't desire presence. You take people for granted. We all do that. People you're with every day, you stop appreciating them. You stop noticing their good qualities, and you only notice, unfortunately, their bad qualities. Now, in the saints, this is often described very dramatically and probably in ways we don't like. They just call it suffering. That there's a necessary suffering to life. When we feel incomplete, when we don't have what we want, when we long for peace or freedom or comfort or joy or companionship. But just remember, that is necessary suffering, or there's no room for joy when it comes. I was going through some trials myself in the last weeks, and God always comes to me in unexpected ways. This time it was at the post office on Bridge and Sunset. I go there very often. I see some of you there. And I had to wait in the long line, as we often do at the post office. It was getting grumpy, having to wait so long. But the particular man behind the window knows me, and he said, "Well, how are you doing, Father?" I said, "Well, I'm actually been going through some trials." And he looked at me very directly, and he said, "God never tries you beyond your strength, but he never tries you any less either." And I said, "Can I quote you in my sermon next Sunday?" So I just did. God never tries you beyond what you can handle. I think that's the way he said it. But he never tries you less than you can handle either. That's what we're talking about. So Jesus has to go away, and we have to experience, as it were, a world without God, without love, without the divine presence, never sure that we really believe, never sure that it all makes sense. And in that emptiness, God creates the soul. That's where God creates a space, a desire, a longing, a need. And into that emptiness, God comes. God never comes undesired. God never comes uninvited. God never comes not longed for. And so God creates the longing. And sometimes it does seem, I know in my life, and I'm sure in yours, you have those moments, those hours, those days where you say, I can't take it anymore. It doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I want to get off the boat. I don't like life as you have handed it to me. It's at those very moments when God takes you to the edge of your longing, the edge of your desire, the edge of your need. It's at that place, and maybe only at that place, does God become real. Because at that place, you cannot sustain yourself, and you know someone else is sustaining you. You cannot hold yourself. You feel you've come to that point that many call the point of powerlessness, the first step of the 12 steps. And it really is the first step. Because until you come to the moment of powerlessness, you do not realize where your power really comes from. You try to rely upon your own instead of the infinite source that is God. So let me quote the postmaster again. God will not try you beyond your strength, but God will not try you any less than your strength either.
This homily by Father Richard Rohr is copyright by the Center for Action and Contemplation. Visit cac.org for other educational resources and programs.